2311 Racing is already planning on expanding for 2022. A lower tier Chevy team looks to be moving over to Toyota for the 2022 season, and a few drivers are going to be making their Truck Series debuts headed into the season. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We got quite a few NASCAR stories to discuss here today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. We're going to go ahead and start off all the paint scheme announcements that have come over from the last couple days. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. Let's start off with Ty Gibbs' 2021 Monster Energy scheme that we'll see at the Daytona Road Course when he makes his debut. I really like this paint scheme a lot. It gives me kind of vibes of when Kyle Busch drove the 54. That car also looked really, really good. And this paint scheme also gives me a lot of those same vibes, and it looks really, really cool. I'm hoping Ty Gibbs has a really good debut. I really do like this paint scheme a lot. And I think it overall is really cool. Loves is going to be the major partner on Michael McDowell's car this season for 20 races minimum for the 2021 season. Now, I had originally heard that it was only 8 races that Loves was going to be sponsoring Michael McDowell's minimum of 8 races. But apparently, after winning Daytona 500, it is going to be 20 races after winning, like I said, after winning the 500, 20 races this year, Michael McDowell will be sponsored by Loves. This definitely helps Michael McDowell in the sponsorship game. It's no surprise that sponsors are wanting to work with Michael McDowell, especially since, Michael McDowell just won this year's Daytona 500. It's no surprise that sponsors are wanting to jump on and work with Michael McDowell for 2021. Good to see Michael McDowell's getting sponsorship again. I think he absolutely deserved the win at Daytona 500, and it's really cool that Loves is continuing their partnership and branding with Front Row Motorsports and Michael McDowell. On to the next sponsorship announcement. CarQuest is going to be renewing their partnership with Roper Racing and Corey Roper for 2 races as of right now in 2021. They'll renew for the upcoming race at the Daytona Road Course, and they will also be on the car for the Texas race before the All-Star race takes place during that specific weekend. There is a possibility that more races could be coming for the possibility of CarQuest renewing their partnership, but as right now there will be 2 races for Corey Roper renewing with them. It absolutely is no surprise, especially since Corey Roper almost won the Truck Series opener at Daytona. Again, the CarQuest car, in my opinion, always looks really, really good, and Corey Roper is one of the biggest underdogs in our sport and absolutely deserves the opportunity for CarQuest to come on. Again, a pretty decently major company sponsoring a smaller team is always something really, really cool, and it's really cool that CarQuest is going to continue branding up with that team, and they're going to continue branding up with them for 2021. And then the final paint scheme announcement that was officially announced today was that Chase Briscoe's 2021 Ford Performance paint scheme. This car looks really, really awesome. I really like the red numbers on the car. I like the red. I like the white on the car. And I also overall like the stripes on the car. I think it looks really, really cool paint scheme. And overall, I like it a lot. And it's a great car that we'll see at the Daytona Road Course. Again, I don't know how many races Ford Performance is going to be sponsoring Chase Briscoe. I assume since he's been a driver in their Ford development program, I assume they're going to sponsor it for many, many races this year. But Ford Performance being back in the car is really, really excellent and really cool news to hear. And now we're going to go ahead and jump into all the other major stories that have come out. Let's jump into those stories. Let's start off with some Jordan Anderson racing news, as Bobby Rayu is going to drive the number 3 for Jordan Anderson Racing at the Daytona Road Course. Now, for many of you who do not know, Bobby Rayu is a driver that runs usually for the Road Course races when they go up to Canadian Tire in the Truck Series. He generally runs for teams like My Karma Racing and some of those back markers, but he will probably have the best truck he's ever had. He'll be driving that number 3 for Jordan Anderson Racing, which I think is really cool that a Road Course ringer is going to drive. I wonder if his brother Roger Rayu is going to run. Maybe he'll run for the 04 truck. I think Corey Roper's driving that truck, if I'm not mistaken, but Bobby Rayu going to drive the number 3 truck for Jordan Anderson is really, really cool. Again, I think that car honestly has capabilities of getting a top 20. I think he's actually a decent road course racer, and I think honestly he can get the best out of the equipment. I've seen him do pretty good at Canadian Tire, and good luck to Bobby Rayu headed into 2021. And he might run some more races for a team. We'll have to see. And then the other news for Jordan Anderson is that Jordan Anderson is expected to race the Truck Series at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. So he'll be back in the truck for Las Vegas. Now, I anticipate Jordan Anderson driving a lot more races this year than he originally planned, because he is not going to be eligible to run any of the Xfinity Series races until qualifying returns once again at Circuit of the Americas. Because remember, they're not doing qualifying for majority of the NASCAR Xfinity Series season. So teams like Jordan Anderson's, the 77 team, the running back, the Bassett Brothers team, and a 03, the second hour motorsports car, I think all have failed to qualify to get into the event even before there was qualifying. This is why practice qualifying does need to come back, and I've heard that they're bringing that back for 2022. So that's something really good. But it looks like Jordan Anderson probably is going to be driving a truck, but it's a shame because some of those teams actually have pretty decent speed, but Jordan Anderson being back in the truck for Las Vegas is really definitely interesting. So that's something very interesting to note, and he'll be back in the truck for Las Vegas in the Truck Series. Kevin James is going to be the Grand Marshal for the Daytona Road Course. For those of you who do not know, Kevin James has a show called The Crew. That's on Netflix. I've heard some mixed reviews on this show, if we're going to be honest here. I think Kevin James usually has put and delivered a pretty good, always does a really good job as a Grand Marshal, and I think he'll do a pretty good job as well for Daytona Road Course. I thought the starting lineup, the way they did the driver intros, it kind of was a little cringy, I'm going to be honest. But the fact that a guy like Kevin James, they're really milking Kevin James and all because of The Crew, which is on Netflix. Again, I just hope that I would like to see the show. I've heard it's really cringy. I've heard mixed reviews overall for that show. But Kevin James will be the Grand Marshal for that. Let's talk about vaccines a little bit. So, according to Adam Stern, close to 100,000 coronavirus vaccine doses will have been administered at Speedway Motorsports tracks over the last month by tomorrow, which is by the end of the month. 75,000 people, including 16K, who got their second shot for a total of 91,000. A lot of racetracks from Speedway Motorsports Incorporated have been letting people come through and drive around the track one time. They've been going backwards around the racetrack at tracks like Charlotte and Atlanta Motor Speedway, and they've been driving around backwards and getting their vaccines through the drive-thru. I am hoping that we continue to see more vaccines coming out so we can all get back to normal. Things are starting to be opened up slowly but surely. That's really good news to hear. And it's good that it's also really excellent news on vaccines. And great to hear the news on the vaccines. As I'm currently editing today's video, it was just announced that Preston Pardus is going to be driving for DGM Racing at the Daytona Road Course in the number 90 car for DGM Racing. Preston Pardus, for those you don't know, has driven in the NASCAR Xfinity Series in 6 select races, and in 2020 actually led 7 laps and scored 2 top 10s for that organization. So Preston Pardus, honestly, is a really good choice for this team, and I would not be surprised if Preston Pardus is able to have some really good runs with the team. I'm wondering what other races they're going to have him in the 90 car. I assume he's probably going to run quite a few road course races for DGM Racing, whether it's in the 90 car or the 36 car. But yeah, good luck to Preston Pardus. I would not be shocked if he has a shot of maybe getting a top 15 with the team. It'd be really good for that team overall. And yeah, being a son of Dan Pardus, hope he does really good in 2021, and good luck to Preston Pardus in 2021. The next story we're going to get into is we're going to talk about Parker Chase, as Parker Chase is going to be driving for Kyle Busch Motorsports for 2 races in 2021 in the number 51 truck for the Daytona Road Course in Circuit of the Americas. Parker Chase is a 19 or 20-year-old race car driver who drives currently in the IMSA programs, and he was Kyle Busch's teammate in the 2020 Rolex 24. They ended up finishing 26 overall in the Rolex 24 and finished 9th in their class. So they had a decent run with the Lexus AMG cars. Parker Chase has not won a race in IMSA, but he's actually done pretty well. I think mechanical issues have kind of plagued him over the last couple years. He's only 19 or 20 years old, and I think Kyle Busch sees something in Parker Chase, especially with his ability in those certain race cars. Now, how old do I think Parker Chase is going to do for Kyle Busch Motorsports? Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a shot for a top 10. Yes, Parker Chase has never driven a stock truck, and these trucks are different than the IMSA cars. The IMSA cars are generally lighter than the trucks, but I think that Parker Chase, especially with Kyle Busch Motorsports equipment, could do really well. I've seen drivers that have come in that car, like Alex Tagliani, who've gotten top 5s. He was contending, I believe, for a top 5 at the Daytona Road Course. I think he had an issue, if I'm not mistaken, but he might have come back out of top 5. I don't remember. It's been a while since I watched that race, but really cool that Parker Chase is going to be driving a couple races for Kyle Busch Motorsports. I'm wondering what the rest of his schedule is going to be. I wonder which drivers overall are going to go over to Kyle Busch Motorsports. Maybe Brandon Jones runs a couple races. Maybe some other drivers in the lower series, like Drew Dollar. We know Drew Dollar is going to run some other races, but I'm wondering how many races Brandon Jones is going to run. That's questionable. Like I said, we know that Drew Dollar is going to be running, I think, 7 or 8 races for Kyle Busch Motorsports in 2021. I'm just intrigued overall how many other races which other drivers are planned to run at. We'll have to watch and see. But yeah, I'm really excited to see that Parker Chase is going to be running for Kyle Busch Motorsports 2021. That's really, really exciting. And good luck to that young man. Hope he can do really well in 2021. And now we're getting on to the next major story of today's episode. And this is reported by Adam Stern. Daytona, which has already hosted fans post-pandemic break at a handful of times, had around 30,000 fans on site yesterday in the grandstands and reported no major incidents. I do believe that's no major incidents from COVID-19. I don't believe anyone that's tested at this point has become infected with COVID-19. That could change, but that, as of right now, has not changed at the specific time. And here's the other part of that report. Daytona had no issues with Confederate flags over the weekend, per Chip Wall, who's the president of Daytona International Speedway. This is really, really excellent. I'm glad people are overall willing to change for the better. I'm glad people are willing to have that opportunity to change. Again, I'm not affected by the Confederate flag 100%, but I know people that are offended overall by the Confederate flag, so I understand why they decided to ban the Confederate flag. And there's been more fans coming to racetracks, and we've had a gain overall in fans in different cultures and diversities, and you want to bring those diversities in. So it is really cool about that overall, and I'm glad to hear that, and it's great news overall on that front. My prayers and condolences go out to Bob Jenkins. Unfortunately, Bob Jenkins will not be as much in the IMS booth. He will not be covering the IndyCar races and when NASCAR is out at Indianapolis Motor Speedway on that radio specifically because, unfortunately, Bob Jenkins has come down with brain cancer. Cancer sucks, man. My prayers go out to Bob Jenkins and his family. Hope he's able to recover from that and come back and commentate a lot more because Bob Jenkins is arguably one of the greatest commentators in the history. I put him up at the levels of Ken Squire and Alan Bessick and even Mike Joy. I put him up in that level of the greatest commentators. Even Paul Page as well. I put him up there as some of the greatest commentators overall. But yeah, brain cancer sucks. Cancer sucks overall, and hopefully Bob Jenkins can come through. And my prayers go out to the family of Bob Jenkins. My prayers also go out to Bob Jenkins himself as well. And now we're going to go ahead and get into the next major story of today's episode. We're going to go ahead and talk about the Daytona Road Course entry list for the NASCAR Cup Series. And we're going to talk about the changes for the Daytona Road Course entry list. James Davison is going to be in the 15 car for Rick Ware Racing. AJ Allmendinger, we already know, is going to be in the 16 car for Colleague Racing. Justin Haley is going to be driving a 77. We know that he's going to be running at Phoenix and Michigan, but we now know another race that Justin Haley is going to drive for Spire Motorsports in the 77. And Ty Dillon, as we know, will be driving the number 96 for Gaunt Brothers Racing. And there's potentially up to 12 races that he could be racing for Gaunt Brothers Racing in 2021. James Davison in the 15. I think James Davison actually is a decent road course racer, but those Rick Ware Racing cars are not that great if we're going to be honest. So I'm really not anticipating too much for James Davison overall. I think he'll probably have a shot for top 30 finish, but those Rick Ware Racing cars are just absolutely awful. So I'm really not expecting too much for James Davison. AJ Allmendinger in the 16. He's going to be probably starting, I believe he's starting in the back for that race. But the Dinger, honestly, I think has a shot and could contend for a win. I think definitely a top 10 is not out of the possibility. He's got a lot of experience at Daytona Road Course. I believe he arguably may have the most experience of any driver in the field when it comes to track. So I wouldn't 100% be shocked if AJ Allmendinger does pretty well there. Justin Haley in the 77. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if Justin Haley contends for a top 20 overall with this team. Spire Motorsports has gotten some upgrades overall, and I've seen what Justin Haley can do in the Xfinity Series, and he's contended for top 5s and top 10s with the Colleague Racing cars. He's been up there with guys like AJ Allmendinger and Austin and contended for wins overall, so I would not be surprised if Justin Haley has a good shot of contending. And then finally, Ty Dillon with Gaunt Brothers Racing. I know his performance with 23-11 at Daytona Road Course wasn't fantastic, but he's going to have an advantage over a lot of drivers. And I think Ty Dillon could honestly, with how good of a road course, I think he's actually a decent road course racer. So I can definitely see Ty Dillon overall having a pretty good run overall at the Daytona Road Course. I definitely see a top 15, top 20, because those Gaunt Brothers cars, especially on road course tracks, generally perform a lot better than they are on the speedway tracks. But yeah, really intriguing that Ty Dillon is going to definitely attempt those specific races. And yeah, I think overall it's really cool that Ty Dillon and all those drivers are going to be driving those specific events. On to the next story of today's episode. We're going to talk about Jett Noland as he'll be driving for Nice Motorsports part-time in the 2021 Camping World Truck Series season. He will drive 6 races for the team in the number 44 truck. The 6 races that he's going to run are the Daytona Road Course, Richmond, Circuit of the Americas, Bristol in August, not the Bristol Dirt Race, Martinsville, and then he will conclude his season at Phoenix International Raceway. What's very interesting to me is I thought Bailey Currie was supposed to be driving the 44 truck at Circuit of the Americas, but I guess I was wrong, and Jett Noland is going to drive that. Jett Noland, I believe, is 19 or 20 years old. I believe in 2019, he won the late model championship, so he did overall really good for that team. Well, he didn't drive for Nice Motorsports, but he was able to win a late model championship, and he actually was supposed to run last year in the Truck Series, but he opted out of the season because of COVID-19, which I don't 100% blame him. Jett Noland is a young driver, so you can't really have that high of expectations for a young driver that's never driven a truck. Overall, I think Jett Noland's goal in the 6 races is he just needs to go out there, go out in the late models, not late models in the Truck Series, go out there and compete for an opportunity to go out and win not go out and win races, but go out there, try to contend for at least some top 20s in Nice Motorsports because they don't have the GMS backing, so he's probably not going to perform as good if he was a GMS. Learn from guys in your veteran drivers like Ryan Truex and Carson Hoceber. Learn from those guys and get up to speed and do the best you can. Contend for some top 20 runs because there's a lot of competition in Truck Series, and do overall the best you can. But yeah, honestly, it's really cool that a guy like Jett Noland is going to come into the Truck Series. There's a lot of good competition overall in the Truck Series this year, and it's really cool that Jett Noland will be competing in the Truck Series part-time. I'm wondering what other drivers are going to drive the 44 truck. We know that Bailey Curry is going to drive select races. We know that James Buescher drove the Daytona Speed Week, and I wonder what other races we're going to see and what other drivers, because I know I've heard that there's some rookie drivers that are coming up through the ranks. They'll be driving along with guys like Jett Noland for 2021, so we'll watch to see what happens. But yeah, Jett Noland will drive that truck in 2021. And now we're getting on to the final major story of today's episode. 2311 Racing. Now, there is a lot to go over from 2311 Racing, which includes 2311 Racing and a lower tier Chevy team switch in Toyota. Last week we talked about how Toyota is looking at expanding their empire and expanding to more teams and more Cup Series drivers and expanding their Cup Series empire. Because right now they have all four Joe Gibbs cars. You have the 2311 car, and then you have Gaunt Brothers Racing, and at times MBM, who does drive Toyotas, but usually they're over at the Fords and the Chevy department. They're racing running Chevys and Fords this year, so they went away from the Toyota empire. So last night, a proposed meeting happened about rezoning plans in, I think, Huntersville, North Carolina. Those plans should be up on the screen for you guys. You guys will be seeing those right now. And apparently, it's like a 70 or 80 acre land, and it's a shop. There have been talks in November about 2311 Racing already wanting to expand, and their goal is to become the next big Toyota team, and they would like to eventually become a 4-car operation. Now, last night on the Door Bumper Clear podcast, there were two things that were mentioned. They're possibly going to be expanding to 2 cars, and it's probably going to end up being confirmed in the future, but they're looking like they're going to expand to 2 cars in 2022. And also, according to Freddie Kraft and I think Tabloid, who were on that podcast, a lower tier Chevy team is going to be switching Toyota. And I actually asked Bob Pockers on Twitter last night, and he actually ended up responding to me saying, Hamlin has been open about wanting to expand. Toyota talks to teams all the time, and teams are up for renewal to get a gauge in interest. So there is a very strong possibility that a Chevy team will be going over to Toyota. Now, when I think of a lower tier Chevy team, there are 3 teams that come to mind. Richard Petty Motorsports, Starcom Racing, and JTG Doherty. Now, let's start out with JTG Doherty. I found out something last night that was really, really interesting. JTG Doherty has apparently lent their picture from one of the teams, has lent a lot of their picture members to Joe Gibbs Racing, which that's really interesting. And JT Doherty is lending their picker members to Joe Gibbs Racing. Also, they do have a history of racing at Toyota. From 2009 to 2013, when they had Marcus Ambrose on a team, and then Bobby Labonte, and then at the end, AJ Allmendinger, they were a Toyota team, but they switched over in 2014. So they do have past time with the Toyota camp. Richard Petty Motorsports is the next team we're going to go ahead and talk about. Richard Petty Motorsports was apparently in talks about moving their team to Toyota, and that was originally when Bubba Wallace was possibly going to be staying with that team, and they were going to switch to Toyota with Michael Jordan teaming up with Richard Petty. But those talks came against fruition, and they ended up staying with the Chevy brand when Eric Jones came over. People thought they were going to also switch over because Eric Jones was on the team. So there's a possibility that they could go over to Toyota as well. They've never been at that Toyota organization. Starcom is the last one we talked about. I heard possibly that it's going to be Starcom. I just think and I don't really know how likely this is because Starcom's always been a Chevy team, but there's a strong possibility that Starcom could also be moving over to Toyota in 2021. I think the team is going to go over to Toyota. I'm really leaning toward JTG Doherty because they've been at Toyota in the past, so I think it's going to be JTG Doherty Racing that is going to be moving over to Toyota in 2021. And then, like I said, the other news I talked about is 21311 expanding to a 2-car operation in 2022. Like I said, they want to expand overall to a 4-car operation, but they're looking at expanding to a 2-car operation in 2022. There are 4 drivers to me that come to mind that are in that running for that 2311 car. The first one is Harrison Burton. Harrison Burton is a driver that's been in Toyota pipeline for a long time, since back in 2015, 2016, when it was a K&N West Series, which is now the ARCA West. Harrison Burton, for the last couple years, has been with Joe Gibbs Racing. In 2019, drove for Kyle Busch Motorsports, but did not win. 2020, he came over to the NASCAR Xfinity Series to drive the 20 car, and he ended up winning 4 races. Now, if Harrison Burton does as good as he did this past year and does almost better with Jason Ratcliffe, I think he could definitely be in the running to go to 23XI Racing. The second driver is Ty Dillon. Now, Ty Dillon actually does have some experience at 23XI Racing. As a matter of fact, he drove the Busch Clash for 23XI Racing. Although it wasn't an impressive performance, he got some experience on the team and helped their road course program. And he has been a driver that has been in the Toyota pipeline since the beginning of the year. He's driving 4 races for Joe Gibbs Racing in 2021, and he'll be driving Gone Brothers Racing possibly up to 12 races in 2021. I think he is one driver that is definitely really likely and a driver that could be in the running to go there. The third driver is Brandon Jones. Brandon Jones has been in the Toyota pipeline since 2018 when he moved from Richard Childress Racing over to Joe Gibbs Racing. At the beginning, he really did not have a lot of success in 2018, but in 2019, he scored his first win with Joe Gibbs Racing, and last year in 2020, he scored 3 victories and almost made it to the Final Four. If Brandon Jones has a breakout year and wins a ton of races this year with Joe Gibbs Racing with his experience, I could definitely see him being in the running to go over 23XI Racing. And then the final driver is John Hunter Nemechek. John Hunter Nemechek in 2020 drove for Front Row Motorsports, but he left the team in 2020 to move over to Kyle Busch Motorsports in 2021. I believe that John Hunter Nemechek is eyeing a possibility of going to a more competitive car, which that is 23XI Racing. And I believe he's only 23 or 24 years old, so even though he's been in NASCAR since around 2014, 2015, John Hunter Nemechek has actually a ton of experience actually racing in NASCAR. Has been around for a long time. He's actually technically a veteran and has Cup Series experience. And I think he's also a very talented driver. And the thing is, that team has a lot of funding for the season. They probably have other sponsors like Domino's that may want to eventually sponsor 23XI Racing, but they were not able to get on the car, but they're fully funded. So I think they're going to be looking at a talented driver. I think the driver that will, there's 2 drivers really in my opinion I think are very, very likely right now. That goes down to John Hunter Nemechek and Ty Dillon. Ty Dillon with the experience and John Hunter Nemechek with a driver who has a lot of talent. So I do think those are the 2 drivers, John Hunter Nemechek and Ty Dillon, that are going to be in the running. The ride for 23XI Racing, they want to expand, they want to get their team up and running, and they would like to eventually become a 4-car operation. So that's the news on 23XI Racing. So, anyway, that is going to be for today's NASCAR news video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel, notifications so you get me notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Links in the description below for that. And comment below your thoughts on today's video. What are your thoughts about 23XI possibly expanding to a 2-car operation in 2021? And which driver, in 2022, excuse me, and which driver do you think, if they are to expand, will go to a second 23XI car that season? Let me know in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about the new debuts of Jett Noland and Parker Chase? How well do you think they'll perform with their teams? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure you like so YouTube can recommend more of these great videos out to you guys. If you do that, I'd greatly appreciate that. Anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care, everybody.